Well, here we go, everyone. It is after further review on this Monday morning, coming off of the Cleveland Browns' miraculous 37-34 win over the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm Dave DiNatale, along with Jay Crawford. We'll get to the victory in a second, Jay, but breaking news this morning, Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be out for the rest of the year, as feared. He has a torn ACL, so the Browns are going to have to move forward now without one of their biggest weapons.
Yeah, crippling blow, no question about it. Whenever you hear a team say we fear a major knee injury, you know that the MRI typically confirms their biggest fears. They do a tug test. I know from tearing my ACL 3 times, they can grab the lower portion of the leg and tug on it. And trainers can tell immediately whether or not that ligament is intact or severed. Obviously, the MRI confirmed what their fear was. But last night, when you heard the Browns say they feared a serious knee injury, that's all but a fait accompli at that point. It's a really tough break for a Browns team that is 5-2 and looking like they're definitely going to be in the mix for a playoff spot this year. But the good news is Rashard Higgins certainly stepped up in his absence yesterday and became, like he was in Baker's rookie season, sort of his security blanket, that go-to guy. The two obviously built a lot of chemistry together when they early in Baker's rookie season, when Baker was running the backup team. So, if there is a silver lining, that's it. You hate to hear the news for Odell Beckham Jr. And also, when a player suffers an injury like this, you hold your breath that he's ever the same guy. If there's an injury that can take a step away from a player, this is it. And obviously, when you're at a position as critical as wide receiver, the step can be the difference between a Pro Bowler and just another guy. So I'm wishing OBJ the best, and I hope he comes through this fine. But, in football vernacular, it's next man up, and that's where the Browns find themselves this morning.
Would you expect that between now and the trade deadline, the Browns would be at least making phone calls to see who might be out there in terms of a potential trade?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because have you seen a team with the depth that this team has at tight end? You go 4 or 5 deep. Hooper goes out, and Bryant and Njoku combined for 3 touchdown catches. So
right.
Baker's a guy that likes to use the tight ends. I think the Stefanski offense would probably be wise to mix them in a little more than they normally do, just because Baker likes throwing to them. They're a nice security blanket. We have guys that can catch the football. Our receiving core, I know Landry's been dinged with the ribs, but with Rashard Higgins playing the way he did, Peoples-Jones steps up and really makes his first impactful play as a member of the Cleveland Browns. So I think the Browns will be okay. I mean, obviously they're weaker today at wide receiver than they were yesterday, but I wouldn't expect them to give away too many assets to add to a position that I wouldn't call wide receiver a weakness position. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be making trades to bring in a safety or to bring in some difference makers on defense, because it's clear this defense is not the defense that will carry a team very far into the postseason should they be lucky enough to punch that ticket. So my hope is, if the Browns are working the phones this morning, and I'm always for that they're trying to bring in a meaningful safety to try to make a difference.
When I saw Peoples-Jones yesterday make that catch, I was and he actually made 3 big catches down the stretch. It reminded me of 2 years ago, Higgins and Brashad Perriman next to Landry, where it's not, they're not box office marquee names, but they're guys that understand their roles in the offense and are capable of making plays when called upon.
Absolutely. And look, what we're dealing with right now is fool's gold. I hate to say that because, Dino, I'm as big a Browns fan as there is. And you never apologize for your record one way or another. It is what it is. You can only play the teams that were on your schedule. we basically have an inverted schedule from a year ago when it was ridiculously brutal to start the season. And how you come out of the gate sets the tone for the second, third, and fourth quarters of the season. We came out of the gate stumbling all over ourselves. We did not look good. The schedule only got tougher. And the next thing you know, we're out of contention counting games. So this year, the schedule has been our best friend. We've played 4 teams that have a losing record, and we took care of business. We beat Washington, we beat Cincinnati twice, and we beat the Cowboys. The Colts, if you look at their record, I know they have a winning record. They essentially have played the same schedule that the Browns have. They've beaten up on the bad teams, and they've lost games when they've played good teams. So we don't have what I would call a quality circle on the schedule win. We've played 2 teams that we know are dominant. They happen to be in our division. So that's just, the bad luck that we have there. The Ravens and the Steelers have, in my view, the top 2 defenses in the NFL, and we've scored 6 and 7 points respectively against them. And we've given up 38 points to both in losses. So we've beaten a lot of bad football teams. We've played 2 really good football teams, and we lost. Now, normally that would concern you as you look forward, but at 5-2, you've got the Raiders coming in this week. They're 3-3 and a beatable team. It's a team that I would favor the Browns in this game. Should they win that game, this is the toughest team that we have on our schedule outside of Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Tennessee. So those are the three of the top 4 teams in the AFC, in my view. Kansas City is the other team that's in the top 4 in the AFC. So in my view, you're going to lose to Pittsburgh, you're going to lose to Baltimore, and you're going to lose to Tennessee. Prove me wrong. I hope I am. If you beat the Raiders, you're 6-5 if you're counting wins. The other 5 games, Dino, on our schedule, in fact, I'll even throw the Raiders in there. You take the 3 winning records out of our schedule that we play, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee, and the teams left on our schedule have a combined record of 8 wins, 32 losses, and 1 tie. That's a winning percentage of 250. You got to take care of business. You've got to beat those teams. If they do, then you finish the year 11-5, possibly 10-6 if you mix in a loss, which it's the Browns. You probably should figure in at least one. But, if you go 10-6, you're a playoff team.
Right.
You're at least in the discussion. But I don't want people to get fooled like this is a team that can make a playoff run, because they clearly are not. The defense is what it is. It's bottom 3 statistically in most categories in the league. They're giving up 30 points a game. A rookie quarterback. Now, granted, he looks like the second coming of Tom Brady. He's got poise. He's got a strong arm. His football IQ is ridiculous. He knew where he was throwing the football yesterday before the ball was ever snapped on almost every play. He would look at the defense and he'd say, okay, they're soft over here. That's where I'm going. 2 steps out of his hand, complete. It's amazing. He played a standout game, maybe one of the best games we've seen from a rookie quarterback in a long time. And he was outshined by Baker Mayfield, who, after starting 0-for-5 with the pick, essentially threw a perfect game. His only miss was the spike on the last drive. Baker has never looked better as a pro. If we get that Baker moving forward, we've got our franchise quarterback, and we've found a guy that we can ride for the next decade plus. The question is, will we get that Baker more often than not? And my fear still is no, because we've seen what the Baltimores and the Pittsburghs do when they get pressure on him. He had time to throw yesterday, and he looked like the Heisman Trophy overall number 1 pick that he is.
Do you buy the theory that a lot of people threw out on social media yesterday? Beckham goes out after that first throw, and Baker's 0-for-5. And then, as you say, comes back and pitches a perfect game, essentially, without Beckham in there. That without OBJ, Baker's just better. He's more relaxed. He's more comfortable. I understood the theory, but I've also seen, I saw that Cowboys game. I've seen other games where Odell Beckham can carry you. So I don't quite buy that. But
look, I'm not going to buy wholly into that, but I will tell you that I think there's something to it. And here's why, Dino. And by the way, Baker missed his next 4 throws with Beckham off the field. So it's not like he was, perfect once Beckham went out of the game. His first throw was a pick. He missed his next 4 and missed wildly on them. He looked like I've never seen a guy flip a switch and go from Jekyll to Hyde that fast. It was incredible. But that being said, I think here's my theory. I think Beckham's absence liberates Baker. So let me explain. I feel that Baker feels the Odell pressure, the glares, the uncomfortable looks on the sidelines, the body language. Let's just call it that. When he's not involved and not contributing, he's not happy. And we've all been in rooms with someone that we know is in a super foul mood, and it brings the whole room down. It just does.
Right.
We're all responsible for the temperature that we bring into every room we walk into. I'm a firm believer of that. Baker by nature is a positive guy, but I do believe that Odell has the ability to bring a room down. And I think we've seen that. I'm not saying anything out of school. And to say that Baker's immune from that is violating every rule of human interaction that we know about. When there's a foul person in the room or a foul attitude in the room, everybody is aware of it. So I think Baker's aware of it, and he's a pleaser. Like most of us, when there's a sour apple in the room, we try whatever we can to bring that person out of it and up to our level. We try. And I think Baker tries, and in his insistence to try to do that, he may try to force a ball or two into Beckham that he otherwise wouldn't if he was wearing number 82. Okay. So I think what it does is it liberates Baker. Now, again, I don't have any inside information. Baker's never said anything about that, nor would he. I don't have anybody that has told me that's the case. I'm just like everybody else. I'm an observer, and this is my theory. Could be wrong. If I am, I apologize to all parties involved. But in my view, I think that's what's going on. Hard to say that the Browns are better without Odell. I'm not going that far. They're going to miss him, particularly when you play great defenses. Against the Bengals, there were a lot of guys open, and Baker found them. Right. Will that be the case against the Titans, Ravens, and Steelers? No. Will Baker struggle in those 3 games? Likely. So, you can't say that they're better with Odell not there, but I do think it liberates them a little bit.
So you had a liberated Baker, and I thought the Browns at least went to quicker passing yesterday. That they kind of sped things up a little bit, and that seemed to help Baker as well. What did you notice that was so different, so crazily different from the 0 for 5 to the 21 for 21?
Okay, here's how I explain it. All right, and by the way, that 21 straight completions obliterates the former record, which was held by Kelly Holcomb and Bernie Kosar of 16 straight completions. And honestly, it's a shame that the spike broke that string.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, he was, he would otherwise have 23 straight completions right now, including 5 touchdown passes. I wrote about this in my column this morning for 3 News, and you've probably seen this stat. It's incredible. 5 go-ahead touchdown passes in the fourth quarter of yesterday's game. That's never happened in the history of the NFL. Combined, between the Bengals and the Browns, there were 5 go-ahead touchdown passes in the fourth quarter. I don't think that's ever going to happen again in the NFL. It was just the perfect storm. You had terrible defenses, and you had quarterbacks that were really, really dialed in. After Baker's 0 for 5 start, the 2 quarterbacks combined to complete over 80% of their passes. That's just, I don't know if that's an indictment of the defenses or an endorsement of these quarterbacks. Maybe it's a little of both, but I think you're right. Your observation is a keen one. The Browns know that Baker does not have pocket presence when there's pressure. So they've done a myriad of things. I've been writing about this all season long. Baker is at his best when he's off his spot. Roll him out, get him boots, get him sprint outs, get him out of the between the tackle pocket. When that caves, Baker gets happy feet and tends to throw the ball to the wrong team. A lot of quarterbacks do that. It sounds like I'm nitpicking, but I'm just being honest. So I think Kevin Stefanski made the adjustments after the first 3 series. Okay, guys, everything's got to be on rhythm. And here's what on rhythm means for the Browns. Boom, boom, out. Boom, right. Boom, out. It can't be 5-step drop, scan, scan, scan. That's going to lead to a sack, a tipped ball, an incompletion. Baker's having a real hard time seeing over his 6'6" wall. Okay.
Yeah.
Any quarterback that's his height usually does. We've seen that historically. That's why you've got to get him off his spot. It opens his vision. It also buys him time. It also, defensive ends are geared to do one thing on both sides. They're geared to come to the middle. They're geared to come towards the quarterback. When you automatically roll him to one side, it's almost as if you take half of the line, the defensive line, away. Not to say they still can't rush and get to Baker. But now Baker is, and particularly when he goes to his left, now there's really no blind side. If the short side of the field is to his left, he essentially has full view of everything. He can see a rush coming from the right. It's really difficult for a defensive end to get home if Baker rolls to his left, because they're going to have to come at him in such a way that he's going to see them coming. Right. So it just gives him better awareness, better vision. And he's clearly, the numbers back this up. The numbers are overwhelmingly in favor of Baker not standing in the pocket. So Stefanski made a brilliant adjustment. In part, you're watching Joe Burrow do the same thing to Cleveland.
Right. He
knows that Myles Garrett's coming. So what did they do? 1, 2, out. 1, 2, out. And that frustrates a guy like Myles Garrett, who's trying to get home every play. When the ball's out of his hand before Garrett is free of his guy, it does start to mentally tax the player. And I've talked to a lot of defensive ends about this, about a lot of pure pass rushers. It will frustrate you in the battle. You start to feel like this is a futile effort. I'm busting my tail every play, and I'm watching the ball come out of his hands when I'm still locked up with my guy. So I think it was a smart adjustment for Stefanski. And I think, again, we're dealing with a guy offensively in Stefanski who's not playing checkers. You know, our last 4 or 5 head coaches offensively were playing checkers. Yeah. This is a guy who's playing chess at a master level. And, he's still going to have problems with matchups when he's playing superior talent. The best scheme in the world can't beat Baltimore's talent and Pittsburgh's talent defensively. If all things are equal, you've got a great offense and you've got a great defense. I'm always betting on the great defense. But if you're playing against an inferior defense and you've got a guy like Stefanski with his weapons, I'll bet on that all day long.
You talked about defensive ends and Myles Garrett a little bit. And once again, he made impactful plays during the game. Of course, the Bengals, as you said, made the adjustment, and Myles wasn't as active in the second half, but another strip sack, and ended up with 2 sacks in the game. And I mean, we've not ever seen a Browns player defensively be this dominant, at least not that I can remember in my time of watching the Browns. It's pretty special what he's doing right now, and they're lining him up in different places, so you can't match him. It's a joy to watch him be this dominant.
It is, and I think I told you 2 weeks ago, I couldn't remember a defensive player in my lifetime that's had the kind of impact that Myles Garrett has had. And I was fairly certain when I said it, but I'll emphatically say it now. He is the most disruptive, impactful defensive player that the Browns have had in my lifetime. And I go back to 1965. Obviously, I wasn't watching Browns football until the early 70s, but I have not seen in those years, which goes back 40 plus years, almost 50 years, I have not seen a more disruptive defender. And Dino, the numbers will tell you that he is 4th all time with 39.5 sacks through the first 44 games of his career. And the players ahead of him are all Hall of Famers, every one of them. So we're looking at not just one of the all-time great Cleveland Brown defensive players. We are looking at a player who is in the early stages of his career. If, knock on wood, we don't have a serious injury and he can continue to maintain this level, he's a first ballot gold jacket guy who will go down as one of the best defenders the game has ever seen. So here's why I make this point, and this is why I want to stress it for this reason. I feel the Browns did Joe Thomas a severe disservice by never surrounding him with other great players, particularly on his side of the ball. So as good as Joe Thomas was, he's the equivalent of Myles Garrett offensively. First ballot gold jacket guy, no question. One of the all-time greats at the position, and clearly the Iron Man at that position. We did him a huge disservice because we never surrounded him with playoff caliber talent. Right. The fact that that man never played in a playoff game is a sin. All of that being said, we have a chance to make it right with the defensive equivalent in Myles Garrett. We owe it to Myles Garrett and this organization's fans to give him the supporting cast he needs to make sure he just doesn't make it to one playoff game. This guy deserves to play in a Super Bowl. Yeah. And so I see a lot of the pieces coming together on offense. Denzel Ward is playing out of his mind.
Yes.
One of the best cover corners in the NFL right now. And that's saying something because last year I thought he took 2 huge steps back. Yeah. But last year he was, I don't know what was going on last year, but he wasn't the guy we saw in year 1. And he's clearly not the guy we're seeing this year. So we need a linebacker that's a standout, one of the tops in the league. If you have, I covered the Buccaneers during their 5 years from 98 to 03, culminating in their Super Bowl victory against the Raiders. One of the things Tony Dungy always used to tell me, and he obviously is a defensive guy, he would say, I don't think you can win a Super Bowl in today's football unless you have not just Pro Bowl caliber players. He said Hall of Fame caliber players in each position unit. So in other words, you need that guy on the line, Warren Sapp. You need that guy in the linebacking core, Derek Brooks. And you need that guy in the defensive backfield. And I think in John Lynch and Rondé Barber, they had 2 of those guys. Yes. I think both will end their careers in Canton. So I would say that the Browns have that guy in the back end of the defense in Denzel. You know, I'd like him to be more sturdy, but yes. I think they have that guy. I know they have that guy up front in Myles Garrett. Is Mack Wilson that guy in the middle? I don't know. Time will tell. You know, we've seen such limited football from him. I don't think Taki's that guy. So we need to focus on getting what I consider to be the heart and soul of a defense, and that's that stalwart linebacker, that Brian Urlacher type linebacker.
Luke Kuechly. Yep.
Can direct traffic, can get to the football, and is also the motor to that defense. You know, the guy that's going to grab anybody in that huddle by the jersey and tell them, we need motor here. We got to go. So, and I think that typically comes from the linebacker. So we need that all-pro Hall of Fame caliber linebacker. And I would place that as priority 1, 2, and 3, because before this defense can take the next step, we've got to be strong in that group. And right now we're not. And it shows. And we definitely need safety help. Wow, do we need safety help? I feel badly for Sendejo. He's exposed each and every Sunday. And I know he's given max effort, but there's just too many times where when you look back at the play, the breakdown came from him.
From 23. Yeah.
From 23. And he has to be better. He clearly isn't the long-term fix for the Browns at that position. They need to find a game-changing safety and a game-changing linebacker. And everyone will be amazed how those 2 pieces mixed in with Ward and Garrett takes this defense from one of the bottom in the NFL. That's what the numbers tell you they are, to a top-tier defense that can take you
Yeah.
on a playoff run. That's what it takes.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me into kind of our last question, last thing I wanted to go over with you. The Browns have a chance going into this bye week, going into this Raider game and then the bye week to be 6-2 through the first half of the season. And you looked through the opponents, and I think really laid that out well. It's the record. Your record is what it is. They're doing this, Jay. Nick Chubb has been out for the last couple of weeks. Teller has been out for the last couple of weeks. Delpit, who they had counted on to be their starting safety, so maybe we wouldn't have even had to have Sendejo in there, except as kind of a nickel guy, special teamer.
Sure.
Delpit's been out. Now Beckham is out for the year.
Yeah.
They've really had to overcome a lot of key injuries where other Browns teams in the past we've seen fold up after a key player or two goes down and gets to that what Phil Savage would call the woe is us thing.
Yeah.
And then you're done. I tip my cap to this team and to the front office, not just this front office, but past front offices, because there's at least some depth now where they've been able to overcome injuries to guys. I mean, Nick Chubb is an all-pro. Wyatt Teller was going to be a Pro Bowler this year, and he may still if he gets healthy. I mean, they've overcome a lot of things here.
Well, that's a very good point. And one of the things I noticed immediately after the game yesterday was, now it's the Bengals. I don't want to make it seem like we just beat the Steelers. We didn't. We did this against one of the league's most well, I don't want to call them one of the league's worst defenses because they're not. They're in the lower half for sure.
Yeah.
Teams have had no problem scoring points on them. Yesterday, the Browns were able to put up 37 points without their top running back, their top wide receiver, and their top tight end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I forgot about Hooper.
This is Lincoln. How'd you like to play? It's
right.
So to your point, our tight end depth is insane. Mm-hmm. Njoku, Bryant, these are guys that if you need them to catch a ball in a critical spot, we saw it yesterday, that they're capable of doing that. Wide receivers, you've got Jarvis Landry and Rashard Higgins now, who clearly has emerged again, and who knows what Peoples-Jones is going to be as a polished product. He's still a little sloppy on route running, and he's green. He's played a handful of NFL games. He was inactive for a lot of the games at the beginning of the season. So this depth that we're seeing is allowing the Browns to beat these bad teams. Now, the Bengals didn't punt yesterday, and it took every last second of that football game, including some incredible plays, for the Browns to beat a team that has one win. The first time around against Cincinnati, the Browns defense puts up 35 points and has to recover an onside kick at the end of the game to seal the deal.
Yeah.
So you can see that the margin of error with this defense need that guy on the line, Warren
Warren
Sapp.
Sapp.
You need that guy in the linebacking core, Derek Brooks. And you need that guy in the defensive backfield. And I think in John Lynch and Rondé Barber, they had two of those guys.
Yeah.
I think both will end their careers in Canton. So I would say that the Browns have that guy in the back end of the defense in Denzel. You know, I'd like him to be more sturdy, but
yes.
I think they have that guy. I know they have that guy up front in Myles Garrett. Is Mack Wilson that guy in the middle? I don't know. Time will tell. You know, we've seen such limited football from him.